Today is going to be I would call it a unique show, very special show. We have the privilege of having Chip Maxson. He is the general manager of the Sacramento River Cats. He's a guy that knows baseball. He knows leadership. And today we're going to hear a little bit about, I think we'll get an overview of the baseball industry and professional baseball industry, but also we'll be able to dive into his team, his business, and how he dealt with some of the difficulties that a lot of us had to deal with over the last year and a half, 2 years. So welcome to the show, Chip.
Mark, a pleasure, man. Always great to be here. Thanks for having me on. And I don't know if I know a whole lot. I'll say I continue to learn about baseball. I continue to learn about small business and leadership. So maybe I can learn something from you today.
Well, we both have grown out our hair. You think about like COVID, what that did. So yeah, from a business standpoint, we had a little more flexibility in some areas and a little less flexibility in others. And one of the things that I ended up doing it. The person that cut my hair was off for a while, so I just let it grow. And you did the same thing. If anybody who's listening to this, you can't see it, but if you're on YouTube, you can see this guy's got curly hair now. He used to be like, was it a buzz cut?
Yeah, it was pretty high and tight. Everybody would ask me if I was a military guy, which I love that. You know, yeah. I'm honored that they would ask that of me. And yeah, during COVID, everybody else is growing out their hair. I think more out of laziness than anything else. I said, I'll grow mine out too. And my wife liked it. And so here we are, I don't know how many months later, and it's still growing and long and curly. And nobody confuses me from a military guy anymore. They think I'm a hippie or something like that now. So it's great. It's fun.
A little Matthew McConaughey or something like that, maybe. Did the players... Obviously, they can. You guys don't require what they do in terms of grooming, I suppose. But did they start growing out their hair and do some of that kind of stuff too?
Yeah, it's actually pretty funny because some of the guys, some of our players, I hadn't seen them since. Well, we didn't make it down to spring training in 2020. Everything shut down the day before we were traveling down there, so I didn't see some of our players since. When we won the national championship in 2019, September 17th, 2019. That was the last time throwing champagne on each other that I saw the guys. Fast forward, they show up this year, and Tyler Beatty, one of our pitchers, he's up and down with the Giants. He did a similar thing, had real long hair, and so we kind of hugged it out and laughed at each other and had some fun talking about not getting haircuts.
Ah, that's awesome. Well, okay, so maybe we'll just let's back up to that moment, the champagne moment, and then maybe walk us through, if you don't mind, this last couple of years, because there's had to have been some ups and downs. We'll dive into that a little bit, and then maybe we can back up and maybe we can talk about Major League Baseball and just professional sports in general after we dive into your business a bit.
Yeah, it's funny the way life works. I tell our young staff, one, you can't replace experience, and what incredible experience we've all gotten over this last 18 months. And I talk about what we all went through in 2008, 2009. We went through a great recession. Now we went through a global pandemic. Mark, I think guys like us can do about anything now. We'll see what life throws at us.
You've been beat up so hard. Yeah, nothing can kill me.
So we go back to September 17th, 2019. I remind our staff about this because on that day we won the AAA National Championship. The River Cats are the only team in all of minor league baseball to win 3 AAA titles. So we're very proud of that. I was honored as the PCL Executive of the Year on that day, and it happened to be my 40th birthday. So I thought I was riding high. I was like, this is great. Life is awesome. Fast forward a few months, how quickly all of that was forgotten about when our world turned upside down. And so it certainly went from the high. We were planning. We had hired all of our staff, gone through all the training for 2020. We're going to have the Giants over for an exhibition game, and so we were excited about that. We had just had Cirque du Soleil at the ballpark. We thought it was going to be a banner revenue year. We're riding high. Everything was pointing up. And then March 17th, we closed our offices, not having any idea of how long this would drag on and what real impact was ahead. But yeah, life throws us curveballs, right?
Yeah. Okay, so March 17th, you decide to close the office. Describe the emotion and maybe the process associated with, because I mean, if you scale back gradually, that's one approach. It sounds like you were able to be pretty decisive.
Yeah, it was man, the conversations, the stress. I mean, anybody in a small business understands what we're talking about, that stress, that anxiety. How do you choose to operate? And for those that don't know, the River Cats were not owned by the Giants. We're owned by the Savage family. They're working owners. They're in the office every day. There's not Wall Street money behind us. We not only own the River Cats, the business entity, but we own the ballpark. And so a lot of teams during the pandemic got relief from a city or county, and so they were able to just push their lease payments and defer them to a different time. We could not do that with our bonds. And so when we started looking ahead,
in some ways, you guys are like a small business. I mean, you're not
exactly.
tiny, but you're a private business.
We are a very high profile small family business is what we call ourselves, 60 full-time employees. And so we started looking ahead and said, this could get bad. And so we started talking through, well, it may only be 2 weeks. That won't even impact opening day. But if it keeps going on, we need to be ready to make decisions. And so really those last 2 weeks in March, we did a whole lot of models of how bad this could get, what we'd have to do for staffing changes, and really our worst fears came true. And once we realized this is going to linger on and talking with other teams, we knew we had to make decisive cuts just to preserve the organization, and start thinking about cash flow.
Yeah, I'm now a guy that's been beat up a few times and had to make very uncomfortable cuts. Did you have to do that yourself?
Yeah, it was important for me, Mark, to make those calls. The silver lining was we had made some plans, and then when the government came out with their stimulus, their unemployment, the stimulus checks, the unemployment options, the federal aid to the unemployment, we did the math, and we figured, okay, some of our employees are going to be in a good spot, or this really is not going to affect them. So one, we wanted to communicate that. Well, I think we're going to keep going back to communication as we talk, because it became so important. And let me add, I love John Gordon, reading his books, listening to his podcast, and something he says, where there's a lack of communication, people fill that void with negativity. That was flashing red at me during this time. I didn't want the negativity creeping in. And so I wanted to communicate myself to our staff, what our plan was, why we were making these cuts, what options they had with unemployment. And I wanted to tell them that I was taking a pay cut as well. We had to lay off 2/3 of our staff, but everybody took a pay cut and had reduced hours, from our owners, myself, everybody. So that was important for me to communicate directly to them. There were some emotional calls. There was a lot of confusion. There was some frustration. There was anger. But I wanted to make sure I was a part of that and could answer the questions as best I possibly could during that time.
Well, it's interesting because in 2008 timeframe, our businesses at the time were thriving. I remember champagne type moments as we were growing, and then 2008, Lehman Brothers files bankruptcy, and we had a couple of months where, oh shoot, we're not doing much business, and we had hundreds of employees, and so what are we going to do? And I had to make some of those. We made some of those tough decisions where people got their pay cut. We let a number of people go, but one of the things I relied on at that time was or referred back to in my heart is, like, I thought back to in the book Good to Great. There's a story about Admiral James Stockdale. He's the longest living prisoner in the Hanoi Hilton in Vietnam, and he had a quote in the book that I'm sort of paraphrasing it, but face the brutal facts as we know them, yet never lose that unwavering belief that in the end, everything's going to be okay. And I think COVID, it represented this extended period of uncertainty for a lot of us. And, when is it, anybody in the entertainment business didn't know when we were going to get back to face-to-face. Right. So I can only imagine, the emotion. But, okay, so you make these cuts, the tough phone calls. Some people are pissed. Other people are heartbroken, I suppose. So a number of the people that I've talked to in this realm were able to kind of get PPP money to hold them over and some of that kind of stuff. Did you guys qualify for any of that kind of stuff? Was that a Band-Aid at all?
Yeah, let me touch on the Stockdale principle, because I'm so glad you brought that up. That was in the back of my mind too. initially I was telling our staff, look, this is probably only going to be 2 weeks. We're going to be back to work before opening day. Then I quickly realized I'm setting expectations we can't meet, and I don't know when we're coming back. But that principle, it's not when we're coming back, it's we will come back. And so once we made those cuts, with that in the back of my mind, and you read stories, Louis Zamperini and some of those guys that went through those, whether a prisoner of war or lost at sea, that was how they survived. Is they didn't say we're going to be rescued by Christmas. It's we will be rescued. I don't know when, but we will. And so we took that approach, and I sat down with our owners in an executive meeting right after those layoffs, and I said, okay, we're going to get through this. And when we do, how do we want to be remembered? How do we want to be viewed at the end of this? And it was great because without missing a beat, Susan Savage said, a best friend of the community. And Mark, that was fantastic because that was seared in my mind, and I was able to communicate that message, and it really helped us shape our culture and really how we acted and how we responded and what we did for our employees and our community and our partners and our fans from that point on and throughout COVID. So that was a great message, and we came back to that line: be a best friend of the community, over and over again. And so I'm so glad you brought that up because I was thinking about that heading in, and I didn't want to overlook that part.
Well, interesting. There's a lot to this. So you talked about communication, and you did a lot of communication. I actually took that same approach. Some people even told me I was communicating too much. Some of my teammates, right? They're like, "You're communicating too much." Because and I was trying to be as transparent as possible,
right?
So that we all were in the war together, if you will. But they thought that when you're the leader and you aren't sure when and how you're going to come back, every time you bring it up, some people would rather bury their head. Some employees would rather bury their head than I think than maybe face the brutal facts, and so they kind of got tired of the constant, communication. Did you ever hear that? And I'm also curious, I was able to do that face to face. So we were, we'd all pile into a room, except we had some offices around the country, but most of it was in Rockland, and most of it was face to face. And it was, I don't know, I felt good about being face to face, but I can imagine a Zoom call being a heck of a lot less, personal at times.
Yeah, the beauty of having a big ballpark is we've got a lot of room to spread out. And so, some of the things that we did, we said, what does a friend of the community look like? We started, we had a bunch of produce that we had ordered in anticipation of our Giants exhibition game. So Corey Brand, our VP of food and beverage at that time, he came up with a great idea. He's like, I'm going to load it up in my pickup. I'm going to take it to the food bank. They need it. Well, then the food bank said, we need volunteers. And so our staff, our remaining staff, but then we also communicated the opportunity to staff we had laid off. Our staff we laid off, Mark, they wanted to still be a part of the team. They wanted to help and donate their time. So we all went together to the Yolo County Food Bank and boxed up goods. And then they said, we need a place to distribute our boxes. There's such a need right now. So we said, we have a big parking lot. Come on out. So they still, on Wednesday mornings, will distribute food from our parking lot. Well, then we said, again, our former VP of food and beverage, our executive chef, they said, we've got hot dogs in the freezer. Why don't we do some meals to go, and we can make a little bit of money. And our thought then is we don't need to be profitable. We need to pay for salaries. So how do we put together family 4-packs? People can buy these online. They can do drive-through pickup in our parking lot. So we get to keep employees employed. We get to see our fans. And then after these events, to your point, and we would invite all of our front office out, 20 of us that were still left, and anybody that just wanted to come out and hang out. And we'd go and sit in center field, throw a football around, throw a baseball around, chase a Frisbee, have a couple beers, and just connect. And people could ask, hey, what's going on? What are you thinking? And so it was a real informal, just casual, and that face-to-face connection, safe, outdoors, spread apart, that we really needed during that time. So I think, one, we provided communication, but we also provided that important relationship component to our staff as well. And so those kind of came about organically, but then we started realizing how important they were, and we tried to be more purposeful as the summer went on. So we did stuff like that. We made calls to check in with people, try to call everybody once a month that we had laid off, try to send some emails out. the people we hadn't talked about yet is our 600 seasonal staff that rely on working for us, and a lot of them work for the Kings as well. And so they lost their opportunities to serve in the suites or be an usher. And so we tried to communicate through email to those folks, just letting them know what was going on. So overall, a lot of trial and error, and to your point, wanted to communicate as much as possible. Maybe we over-communicated, but I'd rather do that than under-communicate.
Yeah. You think about the culture you must have been built prior, kept those people wanting to come in and volunteer and just be a part of something special. When you know you're a part of something special, it's like glue for people wanting to stay involved. So I tip my cap to you and the Savage family and the other leadership that you have there. In fact, I was just thinking, I know a guy named Greg Coletti.
Yeah.
He is good friends with my future son-in-law. By the time this airs, my daughter will have gotten married and to like one of Greg's best friends. And I've met that guy. That guy is a great guy.
I'm glad you brought Greg up. I love it. Greg was at the heart of everything we did in the community really over the last summer, and he was recognized by the West Sacramento Chamber as Volunteer of the Year. He serves on the board for the Red Cross. So we were hosting blood drives. He worked with Sutter Health saying, hey, what can we do for your doctors and nurses and frontline employees? He grabbed some of our other partners, Atlas Disposal and a few other people. We put together 2,600 goodie bags and brought them to multiple hospitals to give them to not just the doctors and nurses, but all of their employees. So Craig was certainly took it to his heart and soul, just the idea of giving back to the community, and we couldn't be more proud of what he did. We recognized him as our Employee of the Year as well, and because of that, the River Cats were also recognized by the West Sacramento Chamber as Organization of the Year, and largely in part because of what Greg put together for us to do. So I'm glad you brought him up.
Well, yeah, it's interesting to see how leadership, you and the Savage family and the other leaders respond, and you see if the leaders respond in a way that is that people want to emulate, it's inspiring, I think, to the rest of us, because I will admit for myself, I got my man Scott over here. He's heard me, he's a guy that I can vent to with like the innermost feelings about stress and stuff like that. And on March 17th, at that, I can't remember that date specifically, but I was like, oh no, right? I thought it was going to be another 2008 for me. Yeah. It didn't turn out quite to be that way on our businesses, but it wasn't positive, and for a number of them, but I had those same flashback moments, and I was here we go again, and so I can only imagine. So my leadership sucked.
I doubt that. I doubt that.
So I tip my cap to people that held their guns and played through it strongly with their teammates, and that's. I always say everything's a leadership issue. So congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
So, okay, so the team rallies. You begin walk us through. When did you know that everything was going to be okay? Because people are now back in the stands and so on, and you guys are playing baseball.
Yeah, it was. In through all of this, Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball were renegotiating their agreement. And so for the longest time, we didn't know what the future of Minor League Baseball was going to look like. And so that stress on top of COVID. So I'll go back. You brought up the Savage family. Jeff Savage was great. Matty Stryker, our VP of Finance. Those two were researching everything that was being put out there from California, from the federal government, to trying to understand the PPP and other loans that were available. And so they made sure that as soon as we were able to apply, we were able to apply for those loans. But Mark, we had a date on the calendar where we can run out of cash, and that's scary. And I know I mention that because a lot of your small business people that are listening and tuning in, they understand that. They probably had that date circled as well. And so they're, we were trying to operate proactively, not in fear, but with the reality of the situation. And so I think when some of the PPP started coming in, I think when, for us, it was fantastic. We had, we talk about renewal rates every year. Renewal rate is our season ticket members that are here with us in one season and then renew and come back the next season. And traditionally, we're between 85 and 90%, which is great. We had our best renewal year ever from people that had signed up for 2020. Many of them had paid their balance in full. And they said, you know what, Chip, we love you guys. We want to support you. Mark, I was so humbled. I remember a couple people, this one lady in particular, she said, you know what? Use my money to pay for an employee. I don't need my money back.
Gosh.
You guys need it. I'll pay again next year. I mean, there was. I'm getting chills talking about it because there were several people like that were just so supportive, and so that certainly helped. We didn't predict we'd have that much support. We had great partners that stuck by us during that time. Obviously, Sutter Health is a great partner, and Atlas Disposal I mentioned, they did a lot of stuff for us. Ace Hardware and so many others were like, hey, we support you guys. We don't need our money back. Well, let's extend our agreement. California Bank of Commerce, Scott Myers and his team. Let's extend our agreement. Push it out another year. Like we're here. We're a team. We're partners. That's what this means. And so that support really helped us. We realized, okay, we've got this additional support. That's going to help us go even further. And then some of these events that we were able to do, Father's Day catch on the field. Then in the fall, we did some outdoor dining. And so we were able to start bringing a little bit of cash in. And then we started selling a little bit for the 2021 season. People were optimistic. And so then we're like, okay, we're going to be in a good spot. 2021 is still going to be tough because while the revenue looks better, because we rolled all that money over, the cash isn't there to back it up. And so when you think about a cash flow perspective, we're still trying to be cautiously optimistic as we go through this year. But I'll get into it if you want to a little bit more. We made a few changes, and we've been incredibly surprised at how people have responded. They're spending on food and beverage when they come to games. They're spending on merchandise. All those per caps, all those numbers are up, which we didn't know. How do we anticipate that? So that's certainly a good thing. We're seeing great response in ticket sales. Groups are still lagging because companies didn't want to book the group outings until they felt it was safe, and so that's still a little bit behind. We're still not back to full capacity. Like many people, again, we have issues with staffing, and we want to make sure we can accommodate the people that come out to games, but we're back up and running. And so to answer your question, it's a long answer to your question. I think it was sometime in the new year when we flipped the calendar and we started looking at how we were positioning, the response we were getting for the 2021 season, how we were starting to get people inquiring about high school and college graduations at an outdoor event. We said, okay, we weren't predicting any of that revenue. Now these new revenue streams are coming in. We're going to be okay. And we're going to come out in a good spot. And so then we had to shift to let's staff back up. Let's make sure that we've got our employees back in the office so that we're not lagging behind too much. Which that's a whole other story, and happy to get into that. But that's been it's been fun and a challenge as well. We've learned a lot over the last couple months.
Was there anything? So talked to a lot of people in the communities, small business owners, medium-sized business owners, and there was sort of, and it happened with our company as well, maybe an epiphany regarding like a pivot, right? So we have our revenue streams that we had prior, as those begin to change because of COVID. Like we did a lot of events, our events stopped, and we ended up deciding to start a new venture. Was there anything that was like a breakthrough idea or a change, something innovative that happened that'll help you in the long run, because almost like a blessing in disguise because you had the downtime, if you will?
Yeah, I'll say a couple things. One is we went to a cashless facility, and that was strongly pushed by the state of California. It was strongly pushed by Major League Baseball, again, just to avoid unnecessary contact, right? And we had talked about going cashless in our parking lots, but we knew it would be a challenge. We weren't sure how it would be received by fans coming out. And when you talk to companies, they're like, "Hey, up to 20% of your cash is walking away," in those types of situations. So we were exploring those options, but COVID and reopening, we ripped the Band-Aid off. And so in our parking lots, at our concession stands, that's helped us out a ton to go cash free. It's sped up transactions so people aren't waiting in line. And obviously, when we first opened it was only mobile ordering was the only thing allowed. The state wouldn't allow people to walk up and stand in line at concession stands. And so that mobile ordering was kind of a side piece of the cashless, and that's been great. It's helping us to just include more technology. We're learning about our fans. We're learning about what they want to purchase. We're able to speed up that purchase process and communicate with them. They can sit in their seat. They don't have to wait in line. We text them when their food is ready.
Oh, nice.
So it's just pushed some of these things forward. Digital tickets, mobile only is another one. Again, just like many of us at the airport, we'd started doing mobile tickets, but it was only about a 20% adoption until this year. And so, again, with the state wanting to make sure that we can contact trace and communicate with people, we needed emails and cell numbers to communicate. And so, again, there's a learning curve with some of that, but we were forced to do it, and it's been fantastic for us because, again, people are giving us their information. We're able to email them, know before you go, clear bag policy, some of these other changes. We're able to remind them about start times, text them, don't forget, we've got a giveaway tonight if you want to show up early, gates open at 6 o'clock. So we're able to communicate a lot better and get to know our fans more, and they're able to communicate back to us in lots of ways. And then for anybody coming to manage your tickets, it's simply a forward an email to somebody. You can pass along mobile tickets and parking. So for a lot of our suite holders, a lot of our members, it's really made their management of tickets a whole lot easier than trying to tear apart tickets, put them in an envelope, decide who's getting them, carry them over to somebody. So it streamlined things a lot for us.
That's great. I have to imagine, too, you think about how it affected the customer, but it may have reduced headcount, too. If you don't have to have somebody sitting there counting the money
Yes.
or, doing some of this processing, it's all digital. I mean, I have to imagine those innovations allow you to hold down, your expenses a little bit.
Absolutely. We were able to eliminate our cash room to your point, so that saved headcount. Little did we know the challenge would be to get staffing this year, and so to be able to eliminate headcount in certain areas and redistribute our people to other places has been vital for us. And so reduce headcount, reduce some of the expenses there, redistribute people to work in other areas where we need them more, and then from just the data collection side, when people are doing everything digitally, that's great. The number one place people get information about our games is our website and our emails. Well, now we can grow our email database. We can segment better based on what their preferences are, so we can send people emails that they care about. Don't have to do the blast email process as much. And so it's really helped us in our business, and will continue to help us as we evolve.
I was watching CNBC a little bit earlier, and they had Chairman Powell from the Fed was talking about inflation. Every question's about inflation. It seems like when you turn on one of these business shows, and you think about the innovation that you guys put into place that allows you to maybe maintain prices. And innovation, and the world that I live in is a very innovative group of people, and they never really seem to talk about how much innovation is going to hold down inflation.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we see the prices of houses, lumber prices are, up and down and so on, and supply chain issues. But, for something like professional sports, I mean, what are ticket prices doing? Are they flat? Are they up? I can't imagine that the cost of business is going lower. You're bringing up, finding good employees.
Yeah.
It's weird how we have this economic challenge, and yet a lot of us can't find really good employees. So
Yeah. It's
what do you make of all that?
Ticket prices are ballooning, to answer your question, across the country. I will say, we always want to be the value product here in Sacramento. We're cognizant of that. It's part of our model. Yes, we could push prices higher, but that's not our goal. Our goal is not to compete with the Giants or even the Kings or anybody else on ticket prices. We want to make sure that we're covering our expenses and that we're providing a great value product to people. So, but at the same time, there's with some of the challenges this year and our limited capacity to start, we certainly had to charge a premium on certain games. And so our model, again, is what a lot of teams are doing, what airlines, what our hotels are doing, is more of a dynamic model where if there's a game where, we're looking at being a sold-out game, we're going to increase ticket prices on that game. On a Monday night where we're not going to sell out, great, that's a great value opportunity. Tuesdays with dollar hot dogs, our families love coming out. So we want to make sure we're price sensitive on the appropriate times. And then we try and recoup some of, or just take advantage of some of the opportunities on other games. And so that's a model that we've been using the last few years and have certainly leaned into a little bit more this season. And then it's when we do look at staffing, it is going to be a challenge, and we're already talking about next year and what will that look like, and trying to think ahead. We're exploring some of the new technology, the robots, if you will, that are now flipping burgers at a McDonald's or someplace like that. Can that translate to the River Cats, to sports and what we're doing in our concession stands? And if so, great. What does that look like? Is that a 3-year payback, a 4-year payback? Does that speed things up? How will that be taken by our staff? So while we're having these conversations, we have to balance it with our staff is who we are. Mark, I tell everybody, I lead our training every year. Tonight, I'll some of the new staff we just hired, I'll spend an hour with them, and I'll go over, here's who we are, here's our mission statement, here's our vision, a welcome fan in every seat, a treasured memory for every fan. What does that look like? How do we put the guests first? And I let them know they're more important than I am. And that's been a paradigm in my mind over the last few years is I don't need to spend as much time on the suite level with our partners. I need to make sure I'm checking in with our game day employees, because they interact with our fans a whole lot more than I do. And we broke it down by the number, 600,000 fans. If there's just 60 front office over 70 games, I have to try and see 146 people every game to welcome them to Sutter Health Park. If we have 600 employees and we're all working together, now it breaks down to 14 people per game, and that's just over a person per inning. That's easy. We can all do that. We can all say hello, welcome to Sutter Health Park. How's your time tonight? Can I help you find your seats? We can do that when we work together. So we are the River Cats experience. It is the people. So while we are certainly exploring technology, we're very well aware that our people are what make the experience so special. So that's a challenge, and I don't have an answer today on how we're going to balance that, but something we're very cognizant of.
I've talked to people that were in and around the NBA, and I won't name any names, but I've heard that those first few rows, like Kings Row and things like that, and the suites and lofts are where they get the lion's share of their ticket revenue from. And I'm kind of curious because when you go to a River Cats game, I mean, there's not a bad seat in the house. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't matter where you sit; you're kind of in a VIP type spot. Do you guys, when you look at that, are there revenue streams that are stronger in terms of location? Where we are able to extract a lot more revenue from certain seats within the ballpark?
Yeah, certainly, and certainly we try and provide those premium options like a Kings Row or Dugout Club. 96 seats, the first 2 rows right behind home plate, dugout to dugout. You're closer to the catcher than the pitcher is, and so that's a unique experience for those folks that come out. And so we certainly have opportunities like that we try and capitalize on those premium areas as well, and those premium seats. Access to our legacy club, primarily a corporate account. And so that gives us opportunity to then offset and keep our costs lower on other areas of the ballpark. And so we look at that and say, hey, where can we increase in one area so that we can keep things affordable for the family in other areas? Those families, that's the backbone of who we are. And so we want to make sure that there's not a barrier for them to come out to a ball game, especially this year.
Can everybody, so I've been at events in I don't know if it's the VIP lounge. I'm not sure what that's called. We've done an event there or two with some organizations I've been involved with, and there's a really cool bar in there. But you kind of have to walk by all the suites to get there. Does everybody have access to that, or is that more of a premium type of product?
Yeah, that's one of our premium spaces.
Oh, okay.
That's the Legacy Club, and so about 400 people a night have access there. We cap it at that to make sure it's a great experience for our guests who go up there. All the food's included. They've got that great bar. They've got the great view of downtown and the fireworks, and so and I think one of the best assets, the thing that people love the most, in the 5th inning we put out cookies and coffee. Everybody loves those chocolate chip cookies. There's a line. It's great.
That's awesome. Okay, so the other thing, I may have asked you about this a couple years back. I'm not sure, but I would see your stadium, and you've changed the name of it to Sutter Health Park. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious about that. But is there a consideration, or are you doing concerts there or other types of entertainment in, let's call it, the off season? Because I mean, it'd be a great place to have a big party.
Yeah, no, it's in 2019 we hosted a great Latin music concert. It was 12,000 people. It was fantastic. We had Jake Owen, we had Nelly come through, and so we started bringing the concerts back, and obviously all that stopped in 2020, and we're looking at it again for this year. So we have a couple opportunities we're looking at for this fall. I will say, having the high school and college graduations, we had 19 graduations at the ballpark this year. We were doing some two-a-days, mornings and evenings. That was a great opportunity, and we'd typically done a couple per year. We're certainly going to look at doing more in the years to come, because that worked out really well. All the high schools and colleges loved coming out there, having that outdoor space, and so that's something we're going to put more emphasis behind as we move forward. The concert side, I'll give you a sneak peek here. We're about, I think tomorrow we will announce that Major League Baseball has added 10 games onto our schedule at the end of the season. So I guess by the time this airs, we'll have already announced that. But we haven't been able to lock in any events at the end of September or October yet, because Major League Baseball they told us to hold those dates in anticipation of adding games. They wanted to see how things played out with COVID, making sure we didn't have any massive breakouts. And so now they're going to add those 10 games, so we'll get an additional 5 games. And our season will now go through October 3rd. So now that we've got that finalized, we're going back to a few partners, concert promoters, and saying, okay, we're ready to go. Let's try and get things booked. So hopefully we'll be able to announce a date for our Brewfest coming up, and then a couple concerts as well in the fall.
Yeah, it feels like, to me, this is just maybe a personal thing. There's a little bit of a pent-up demand. We feel like we've kind of been home watching Netflix and Prime or whatever for the last year or two, and hey, I wouldn't mind getting out, and boy, I haven't been to a concert in a long time, you know, and it sounds funny, but I kind of miss it, and we're going to end up going to a couple of concerts and stuff, and I've often thought, I like going to the outdoor ones. Mm-hmm. We have a loft at Golden One, and I like going to the concerts there. It's great, but I like the outdoor feeling personally a bit better if you've got decent weather. Sacramento's a place where you can typically get some good weather, especially as it gets into the evening.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think you guys would be perfect for that.
Yeah, we just did we typically do fourth on the field. We do food trucks and a band. And this year, again, trying to plan it, we weren't sure what was going to happen with the reopening. And so we changed the model a little bit to try and scale back. And we partnered with the Philharmonic and Opera. And so they came out. We had a stage in center field, sold field tickets, sold tickets in the seats so we could spread people out, and then sold some of the suites as well. But Mark, it was fantastic, and we were able to eventually sell more tickets when things started opening up more. And the symphony and orchestra was choreographed live to the fireworks. It was one of the best shows I've ever seen. And to your point, we had so many people coming out just having a great time with their family, emails, texts. Chip, that's the best show I've ever seen. And I don't know, it was a fantastic show. And so maybe Pyro Spectacular and the Philharmonic, they did a great job. I don't want to take anything away from them, but maybe it's some of that pent-up demand as well that we need that. We need that time together with our families and those memories. And so people are excited to get out and about, and we want to make sure we provide as many opportunities as possible.
That's great. Okay, let's step back. Let's make sure. I want to make sure we share whatever we need to share regarding the River Cats and what you're doing. Well, actually, sorry. What change? Why the name change on the stadium?
Yeah, so Sutter Health Park. Sutter's been a longtime partner going back to I think 2001 or 2002, and so when our agreement was up with Raley's, we'd been in conversations with them about whether to renew or not, and so. Then we just said, okay, hey, if there are other opportunities, other people who may step in, who are some local, like-minded, community-focused partners that we could go with. And so through that negotiation process, Sutter really emerged as hey, this is a partner. They've been here. We're already doing stuff in the community. We're doing stuff at the hospitals. This could be a great community partnership. And so as things started to evolve, Sutter became the clear choice to continue that partnership with, and Raley's was great and supportive. In fact, when we did the announcement in the fall of 2019, Mike Teal, Keith Knopf, Deirdre, their VP of marketing, they were all out there at the announcement. Mike shared a little bit about the family history and did kind of a ceremonial handing of the bat over to Sutter Health, and so it was it was a great transition, and we're still close with our friends at Rayleigh's and love some of the things they're doing. They continue to do in the community and try and be supportive of them as well. But it's been great with Sutter, and I think because we're so like-minded. Even last year, when we weren't having ball games, we were doing a lot in the community together, and then leading into this year, the vaccine clinics that we've hosted, we continue to do those at ball games. The different opportunities, different events we're doing for the Sutter Health and employees. They have such a big employee base here, and they're so committed to the Sacramento region. It was just a natural partnership, and it's continued to grow and get better.
Both those companies are fantastic for our community and give back so much, and their brands are both enormous. It's interesting to think back to Arco Arena, and it became I don't know the whole transition. I can't remember it as well, but it ended up, I think, being Sleep Train. But people still call it Arco Arena.
Yeah.
It's like so I'm wondering, like, the long-term branding benefit for Rayleigh's. I mean, people are going to be calling it Rayleigh Field for a while. I'm sure they still do at some level.
If they do, I'm going to find them, Mark.
Okay, do not. Okay, if you are listening, do not call it Rayleigh Field. This is Sutter Health Park.
Yes,
Thank you, Sutter.
Exactly. And we looked at that, and we work with different agencies as we were going through this process because we wanted to understand that and what it would take to make sure people called it Sutter Health Park, to make sure that was in people's minds. And candidly, I think the whole COVID transition helped with that a little bit. And so it was just talking with Carrie Thomas at Sutter Health. She's been great in this partnership. We were just reflecting on that a little bit ourselves. And so I think it's been a good transition. I think the more that we continue to do out in the community, not just in baseball games and with Sutter Health, is going to continue to cement that. And again, we don't want to take anything away from the partnership with Rayleigh's. They're still right across the street. I'm sure Keith can look out his window and wave at us and see what's going on. And so we love that partnership and so appreciative of how important that was just to get the River Cats up and running. And but now we're excited about this opportunity with Sutter Health and want to make sure people really appreciate their commitment to the region.
I love it. Okay, so stepping back, and feel free to interject anything else you want about the River Cats as we go. But I'm thinking back to maybe just a general education for us on, you said that the River Cats are not owned by the Giants; they're private. What part of the business of baseball is part of your business, and what part is the Giants? Where do the lines get drawn? How does that work?
Yeah, it's interesting because there are very clear lines, but they become blurry throughout the course of the season. And so the Giants, all of the players, coaching staff, they're all on the Giants' payroll. So myself as a general manager, people often think that like Farhan Zaidi or Scott Harris, the GM of the Giants, they think I'm making roster moves to the River Cats. I have nothing to do with the team. The only thing the Giants ask me about is where to get a good burger when they're in town. So let me make that clear. I have nothing to do with the player personnel side. So we essentially just run the business operations and run the facility of the ballpark. Now, when our players are here, the Giants understand our fans view them as River Cats and part of the community here in Sacramento. And the Giants have been fantastic. They want to know what we're involved with, and they want to encourage their players and coaching staff to get involved in the community while they're here in Sacramento. And so our coaches, Dave Brundage, Damon Miner, these guys, they've been great. And whether it's going to visit patients at the hospitals with Sutter Health, or whether it's doing the baseball for all down in South Sacramento, whatever it is, however they can give back. Tyler Beatty, he's gone to the Union Gospel Mission and shared with some of those people. I love it because our players are so eager. They understand the role that they have, and a lot of that's from the top down. The Giants are really emphasizing that with these guys. And so we love to see how they're involved in the community. I will say, we make sure, I've got some golf lined up for them. We make sure we take care of their wives and girlfriends when they're here. The more we give to them, the easier it is for them to say yes. And really, we want to treat them like we would treat our own employees, like family. And so it's worked out well that way. And we want to continue to make sure that those guys feel welcome and at home here. And that way, they do want to continue to give back.
So you got players and coaches and roster type stuff, salaries, agents. That's Giants.
Yep.
What about stuff like umpires and the things that have to do with the game itself.
Yep. Yeah, umpires are Major League Baseball.
Okay.
They have an umpire development program, and so those guys come through and again, we try and set up golf for them, make sure they've got a good hotel to stay at, and just to make sure that they're enjoying their time here. But that's all run through Major League Baseball. It is interesting. We share some costs when it comes to baseballs with the Giants, with travel. Our league is the only one outside of Major League Baseball that AAA West, now the former Pacific Coast League, we're the only one that primarily uses commercial air. And so our travel expenses are significantly higher than the California League, where the San Jose Giants and the Stockton Ports are part of that. So they typically bus everywhere where we will fly. So we'll have higher expenses there. And so we'll work with the Giants as part of our relationship. They'll help cover some of those costs as well.
So, and then what about I have to imagine a big part of the revenue streams for somebody have to do with all the hats and memorabilia and that sort of stuff. Who does that?
Yeah, we that all falls under the River Cats. We
Okay.
operate our main revenue streams are, we call our memberships, our season tickets. That's a big chunk of our revenue stream. Then we have our single game tickets where you and your family may decide to come out to a game. So you guys come out. That's another big revenue source for us. And then you think the suites, the sponsorships, those are our big revenue streams. Food and beverage, obviously, and then merchandise and parking. So those are the main ones as far as River Cats go. And then we have the special event side, the concerts that we've talked about, the graduations. If you guys come out and rent the Legacy Club for a meeting space, we do a lot of holiday parties up there in the Legacy Club. So that all falls under our non-baseball, our special events arm of the business. So we continue to try and understand different unique ways that we can grow and expand the business.
Okay. What's going on with I'm thinking about the trends in sports, right? So is baseball, I heard golf's blowing up in a good way. What about baseball? Is it a growth industry?
Yes, it really is. We've tried to really communicate that to folks. We looked at studies going back to 2018, and since then, baseball is the fastest growing sport. And I think a large part is the relationship minor league and Major League Baseball have put that behind the Play Ball initiative and RBI, returning baseball to inner cities. And so they've done a big push, their whole Play Catch campaign, go out in the backyard and play catch. And so recreational baseball and softball has outpaced any other sport over the last several years, over the last 3 years, which is great to see that growth.
Oh, wow.
And then baseball is really focused on how do they continue to highlight the diversity in the game with the young players, the youth, the excitement. I'm sure people remember Madison Bumgarner and guys like that, a little more old school, don't like it when somebody has a bat flip after a home run. But I probably lean more towards the old school side, but maybe I'm just getting old. But it's still exciting to see these guys celebrate and have fun. And so we like seeing that as well. And it does add a little bit of flair and drama to the game. And so baseball's trying to celebrate that. There's a big push on shortening the game. This year, this second half of the season here in a couple weeks, we'll actually get bigger bases. Major League Baseball is experimenting at all levels of minor league baseball. Our bases are going to be 2 inches longer. Theo Epstein, people know he was the architect of the Boston Red Sox when they finally broke their curse. Then he went to Chicago Cubs, helped them break their curse in 2016. He's now working for Major League Baseball, and he's done all this research that shows the most exciting plays are not the home run, but they're the double, the triple, and the stolen base. And when you look at baseball, while home runs are up, strikeouts are way up, but doubles, triples, and stolen bases are way down. So a lot of that is the new analytics behind the risk reward. It's kind of like the three-point shot in basketball. That mid-range is going away. And so they're trying to look at how can they manipulate certain things while maintaining the integrity of the game to increase the likelihood of these exciting games in baseball, while all the while shortening the game up as well. So the two extra inches on the bases, they'll still be 90 feet from home to first and from third to home, but then from first to second, second to third, it'll be 4 inches shorter.
Shorter, okay.
So the fan won't see the difference, but they're just trying to increase the bang-bang play, the likelihood of safe runner going down to first base or stealing second, from runner on first base. So a couple of nuances.
I'm trying to think of the geometry on this. So the bases going down to first base and third base are exactly the same, 90 feet. And what happens to second base? It moves where? How does it get shorter?
So it'll be 2 inches longer towards first base and towards third base. And so in first and third,
the base itself gets bigger. Is that weird?
Yes.
It's a bigger
Yes.
base.
Yeah.
So the base that you step on is actually a little bit bigger, and so it's closer.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I was like, how do you move the base? Okay, that's interesting.
So it'll be interesting, and for some of the old school baseball fans, they'll like hearing even down at, I think it's single A, they're exploring rules against the shift that we're seeing now. With you have to have a certain number of runners on the third base side of second base, and a certain number of position players on the third base side, a certain number on the first base side. You have to have feet on the dirt instead of out in the outfield. And so they're trying to explore some of this. Just say, hey, what can we do to continue to increase the likeliness of the most exciting plays in baseball?
Okay, so the bases on first and third will remain exactly the same size bases. What are they, like 1 by 1 or a little over a foot?
They'll actually be a little bit longer, bigger as well.
They're square though.
Yes.
Yeah, they're square.
Yep.
And they'll be a little bit bigger.
Yes.
But still 90 feet from home plate.
Yes.
But just a little bit bigger base. Okay, got it.
Yep.
How big is a base anyway? Is it a foot?
I used to know that.
I would say, for anybody listening, it's like, I don't know this, but they seem like they're a little over a foot, big. I put a lot of bases in the ground coaching baseball and so on, but I didn't know what the official Major League Baseball sizing was. Okay.
Hey, remember, I'm not a baseball ops guy. I'm a business guy.
I love it. Okay. And then the one other thing, and maybe you guys aren't involved in this because you're not as involved with the players, but you're an industry insider, and I'm wondering. So there's this, you hear about it on the news and so on about college athletes having the ability to get paid, right? There was a law that changed or is changing that's going to allow for college athletes to actually get money. Mm-hmm. And I have to imagine it's going to affect football a lot and maybe basketball for the real high-profile players. What's baseball saying about that?
There's not a lot of conversation in baseball about that. One of the things that's changing baseball at the collegiate level now is the draft. In 2020, the draft was only 5 rounds. Now, the Major League Baseball draft just happened, and they expanded to 20 rounds. However, it had been 40 rounds. So they're cutting the draft in half, which is doing a couple things. One, it's keeping players in college longer to play college. I was talking to my wife and I were up in Seattle, and one of her running friends from up there. She works at the University of Washington with their baseball team in recruiting, and it's a challenge because the college programs try to anticipate who's going to be there and what scholarships they have to give out. And so colleges right now are in a little bit of a on the baseball side, are in a scholarship crunch because players are deciding to stay longer instead of declaring for the draft and going on to Major League Baseball or independent league ball. And so it's unique. And so hopefully for college baseball, they get through this scholarship crunch. They're able to get back into a normal rhythm, and it'll elevate the play at colleges by having guys stick around a little bit longer than they would have before. And so that'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. But there hasn't been a lot of conversation in regards to paying players because the former model, a guy would go to JUCO for 2 years because you can get drafted after high school. Then you go to JUCO so you can get drafted again because if you go to a 4-year school, you have to wait till after your junior year to get drafted. And so a lot of those guys would take the draft money, that signing bonus, and go try their hand out, see if they can make it to the big leagues. Now it'll be interesting to see what happens with some of these programs. And we every year the College World Series is such a spectacle, and it's great TV, great for TV, great for in person. So I'm hoping it just elevates the level of play and the popularity of college baseball.
Okay, well, so maybe just I'll have we're kind of running out of time a little bit, so I want to make sure we give you a chance to cover anything that you want to cover. So maybe if you don't mind, maybe just give us maybe an overview of where you're at now and where you're going, and then maybe I always like to, you've got this wisdom. Maybe think about the small businesses out there that might be listening, small business owners or people that want to be business owners. Maybe just words of wisdom for them as we go into the fall and this the second quarter.
The wisdom I'm learning is to try and talk to guys like you and pick up nuances and tricks and more wisdom from guys like you. But I will say, one of the things that COVID allowed me to do was to stop and reflect a little bit. I came to the River Cats in the fall of 2012, and at that time we went through a lot of changes. I was able to bring my team on, develop leadership, that in turn developed the culture. Culture manages more than people do. That's not new. But people create the culture, and as leaders, we think we impact culture, but what's the true impact? And so I during COVID, when we took a step back, when we unfortunately had to lay people off, it allowed me to get to know a lot of our younger staff that were still on board, and when we talked about, we were shoulder to shoulder working together. Titles didn't matter when we're out working at the food banks and when we're giving food to our folks, the family 4-packs, the drive-through food pickups. It didn't matter. We were all working together, and so I was able to see the quality and character more of the people we were hiring. Then I heard a podcast from Urban Meyer, and I won't tell the whole story, but he went back to when he was at Utah, and he learned how important identifying criteria for student athletes is. And so at Florida then and at Ohio State, he brought this criteria. We're only hiring this type of person because they will fit our culture and they will bring what we're looking for. And then they will elevate the culture, make everybody around them better. And so we took COVID as an opportunity to get our department heads together and say, okay, as a general manager, I'm going to state that the River Cats want to hire hardworking, competitive, coachable, and people of integrity that won't put the organization at risk. That last part, that has grown so much over the last several years, just that integrity piece. And so it doesn't matter if it's finance, operation, grounds, or our sales staff. Hardworking, competitive, coachable, and people of integrity are what we're after. Then I had our department head say, okay, for your specific department, what define your culture and what type of person do you want to work in your department that will help fit that culture. And so again, when you think about marketing, fun and creativity, for operations, people that can manage stress and they're not going to get overwhelmed on the operations side. And so then we said, okay, what kind of questions do we need to ask in interviews? And we're doing background checks and we're talking to references. What kind of questions can we ask to try and learn more about these people? And I'll go back to Urban Meyer. They started talking to high school coaches saying, what player do you not want to play against? What player is so frustrating because they grind, they work hard. You always know you're going to be in a dogfight when you play that player. And so that got us thinking about, okay, what type of reference checks are we doing? And so, Mark, as we fast forward, as we're now ramping back up and hiring folks, we're being very deliberate in that process. It's frustrating. I hate it. I want staff now. But we're already seeing the fruit and the dividends coming from the staff that we're hiring that fits this criteria. We've walked away from people that have good resumes because we're like, no, they don't quite fit the criteria that we're after for this specific position. Our HR manager hates me right now, but in the end, no, she's on board and she helped come up with some of these questions that we asked to try and define, these characteristics. For example, I was asked coming out of college, I was looking at a commercial real estate opportunity. At what age did I start working? And this could have been a paper route or something like that. And I thought back and I was like, well, I was probably 8 years old. My brothers and I, the apartment we were living in, the guy that owned them hired us in the summer to spread rocks and pull weeds. And then it was a paper route at 12 and then mowing lawns at 15. And then my buddy's dad owned a pizza parlor. So washing dishes at 16, finish line, selling shoes at the mall, at 17 and 18. And the guy's like, great, you know how to work. Yeah. And that stuck with me. As a small business, I can't afford to teach someone how to work. So I'm looking for a kid coming out of college that maybe they worked in high school, worked through college, and preferably to check that competitive box. Did they play a sport and did they work during college? If they did both of those, great. Candidly, the kid is like, no, I want to focus on my grades. Hey, man, did you just want to party? Like level with us, I want people that have already learned how to work. So when they come to the River Cats, that box is already checked. They can hit the ground running. They can become a part of our culture. We can do the onboarding. They're doing their job more efficiently at a quicker pace. And so I think that's That's one thing I'll challenge all your listeners with is, have they taken the time to identify what criteria, what type of person are they looking for, or do they need to work alongside them? Because those are the people that are going to drive the culture. That new hire today drives a culture in 6 to 9 months. And so let's make sure we're going out finding the right people that fit the culture that we're after.
Yeah, hire for culture. Wow, what great advice, and well taken. So thank you. Well, thank you. And I don't know if you have any other closing thoughts, but I mean, great guest, always very informative. And, for anybody out there listening, I think if you didn't already know this, the River Cats are a gem for the Sacramento region. And it really is the people. And you bring so much, Chip, and your team to the community that I think we have to say thank you. And I know it sounds like the one client or customer was very appreciative, but I think a lot of us maybe are maybe more silent and even don't even know what to say. But when we have a great business in our community, we do need to say thank you. So thank you, Chip. Thank you to the Savage family. Thank you to Greg Coletti and your other teammates. And, we're lucky to have you guys. Thank you.
Hey, Mark, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. We love this community. The community loves us. And we plan to get through this year and continue to find ways to be that best friend of the community that we talked about.
Love it. Thank you. Chip Maxson, Sacramento River Cats. Thanks for listening, my friends.
Thanks for watching today's show. My goal for every episode is that you find a takeaway, something tangible you can use in your business today. And if you have a comment about a favorite takeaway, feel free to put it in the box below. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to bring up on the show, don't forget to let me know. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship. Because at Haney Biz, we are always by your side.